Welcome to That Entrepreneur Life, a podcast about entrepreneurship that takes you from idea to launch and beyond. Each week, your hosts, Andrew Lees and Clint McPherson, discuss different business topics aimed at adding value to any entrepreneur's journey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Entrepreneur Life. I'm Andrew Lees, and I'm here with my co-host, Clint McPherson. What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man. Coming off the weekend. I had a good weekend with the family, and I'm excited to dig back into this, getting back into that entrepreneur life, recording another podcast episode. Excited as always. So let's go ahead and kick this thing off by welcoming our special guest today, Jerry Fletcher, to the show. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Absolutely good thing to be here. As I just said a few minutes ago, I just got off a call from London, so I don't know where I am at the moment, but I'm here.
Yeah, we can see you here. You're present, and that's all that matters. That's awesome. So yeah, it's great to have you on the show, Jerry. Before we launch into everything, can you give us a little overview of who you are and what you're all about?
Okay, I'll give you the short version. A number of years ago, I was the CEO of an advertising agency. At some point, my board and I agreed to disagree. And so I left there. And that was, it's over 25 years ago now. And I've never looked back. I opened my practice and over time developed to the point of doing what I do now, which is I'm a consultant to marketing consultants or to consultant to marketing folks that need to have consulting done for them, which is a bizarre place to be, but it's a very narrow niche. I do a lot of work with consultants. And when somebody says, what do you do? My answer is, look, you know how everybody tells you you've got to be memorable, but nobody tells you how to do it? Well, what I do is I help all those consultants that I work with and folks that are independent professionals of all kinds figure out how to do that and to develop a way to become memorable, to build a business, a brand, and a life of joy. And I've been doing it now, as I said, for about 25 years.
That's very cool. Yeah.
I mean, Jerry, with you mentioning that, right? You've obviously had an impressive career as a marketing expert. And now that you're really a consultant for consultants, right? Marketing consultants. Can you take us back though, when your actual entrepreneurial journey started and what it is about entrepreneurship specifically that really gets you going every morning?
Well, I always wanted to be on my own. I'll put it that way. So even when I was working for major advertising agencies, I had a little side business, a side hustle, if you will, doing that kind of work. And when I when I agreed to leave my CEO position, basically I had I had a lot of choices. I could have gone to work for somebody else, done all kinds of things. But I said, it's time. I'm going to go do what I always wanted to do. And so I decided to go ahead with my entrepreneurial activities and wrote a letter to about 60 of my closest friends in the Advertising Golf Association, told them what I was going to do, got 6 responses. 2 were good luck. 2 were, here's a referral. You might be able to work with these people. And 2 were, hey, I've got this thing that needs doing. Would you mind doing it? That was over 25 years ago. Okay. And because of that, and because of the nature of what I was doing, working with new products and new people, developing products and so on, I've done a lot of entrepreneurial kinds of things over the years, including putting my own money into things or taking stock as part of the regular fee that I was charging. In fact, there's a good example of that. It's an outfit called Digimarc, which you probably haven't heard of. Essentially, it's a company that has the ability to embed digital information in just about anything so that it stays there. And if you have the ability to read that information using a computer, you can tell exactly where it's been, what's happened, and so on. And it stays present, whether you cut things up, you copy them, whatever you do, it stays there, right? And it's a thing called steganography. It's as old as the Middle Ages when people used to do it by hand in paintings. But it was a way to hide information. And I helped start that company, raised $500,000 for them in 17 days. We got it working, and I decided to take stock as part of my ongoing pay for that organization. And I'll tell you, when that went public, that is probably the best entrepreneurial day I've ever had, because we had a party that night, and we had, I think, 5 or 6 tables that, seated 8 people. There was nobody in the room worth less than $4 million. That's entrepreneur work. And it was fun. But then the bus came for, high tech. So we all had to go back to work again. That's the same old thing. They're interrelated. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
The thing that happened was that they discovered this technology was absolutely wonderful for any kind of financial instruments. Okay. Stocks, bonds, etc., because you could actually, prove that you had the real thing. But then if you think about it, the one thing that we use more than anything else in the financial arena is money, printed money. Okay. The only major country in the world that does not use this technology in their money is the United States. And the reason is it wasn't invented by the Treasury Department. And it's the age-old story of something being invented in a garage. I mean, literally, we used to work in a dirt-floored garage, and we didn't have any money. And of course, I have to raise some of the money. But I've never forgotten the 5 basic guys that started this thing that went to work on it. We used to make tea in an old beat-up teapot and serve it in some cracked cups and saucers that we had. I mean, it's that story that we all hear about, but I lived part of it, and it was absolutely wonderful.
That's such an interesting and kind of tried and true entrepreneurial journey, right? Kind of starting in a garage and then ending up at that dinner that you were talking about, where everybody's a millionaire. But the journey in between is so difficult, and can be so trying on the business. But it's great that you guys were able to take it all the way from start to finish.
It's one of those fortuitous kinds of things. The guy that came up with the idea is a PhD. He was working for an outfit called Tektronix, and he was doing some work. And one of the engineers that he worked with, I'd worked with doing some advertising things for, and they called me one day and said, "Hey, can we have lunch?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." And I won't go into what the idea was, but basically I made a bet with the PhD who developed this other technology and said, "Look, if this works, I'll buy you dinner for yourself and your wife at the best place in town. If it doesn't work, you're buying me another hamburger here." Right? About 3 months later, he says, "Would you like to have a hamburger?" and so we did. We went out for a hamburger, and he said, "I got something working in the garage. You want to take a look, see what you think?" I got home that evening, and I said to my wife, I said, "Look, I have just seen the next Xerox." She went, "What? Are you crazy?" I said, "No, I'm not crazy." The technology they're taking it to all kinds of different levels and doing things with it. But it's one of those things that's almost impossible for people to understand. And so we had a long, difficult time positioning it. But it's one of those things that works. The journey there was really, people talk about the entrepreneurial journey. You're as good as the partners you pick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that
great.
simple.
Yep.
Because in this case, Jeff, who was the inventor, his first partner was his engineering partner. And they literally were the typical scientist and engineer working side by side, getting things done. And then they said, well, we need somebody to patent this stuff, right? And they got what I believe is possibly the best patent attorney in the United States, because he's one of those people that not only can write about it and do the legal stuff with it, but he understands the science. Okay. So Bill was just, he was wonderful. And then they said, well, we got to have somebody that can handle the books and so on. Right. So they had a friend, and Tony was the CFO for a major international corporation. And so he couldn't be with us all the time. But when he could be, he was absolutely wonderful. He could do everything that needed to be done. And then the next piece was they needed somebody to do the marketing. And then, there was a discussion going on in the garage, and everybody kind of turned to look at me and said, well, you're going to do this, right? I went, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
So we got together, and that was the core group. And I've never forgotten what we had to do in order to get money. We had to do some pretty difficult things, but first off was all the paperwork. But the one thing that that I will tell you now, and this is for your audience as well. One of the things we did when we tried to find people with money wasn't just the money we were interested in. I've never forgotten sitting across the table from one of our fellows who actually, over time, I believe, came up with about $500,000. But we were sitting there, and I looked across the table at him. I said, "So you're in this just for the money?" He went, "Well, not really. I'm kind of interested in the whole thing." I said, "Good, because we don't want people that are just here for the money. We want people that want to get involved." And that's a critical element in the early days of funding anything. If you've got people that want to get involved, they're going to contribute, but they're going to contribute more than just the dollars and cents. This was a gentleman whose primary business, his primary business was, how do I say this? Leasing equipment to big companies. And I said, "So what kind of stuff are you leasing?" He said, "Well, let's see, right now we've got 7 or 8 747s. And he started to go down the list. And I said, "That's enough. I understand."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so his job that he wanted to do was the basic intelligence on the product and or similar products. Now, you have to remember that there wasn't a huge internet at the time. I mean, we're talking about the days of the well, when people were just starting to get this whole connection. And so Jack did all the work in terms of the intelligence work for the organization. And it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. This guy's reports on a weekly basis would be, "Well, there's nothing really hot going this week, but you might want to look at," and he'd cite a specific company and where they were and all the information about them. And here's what I think is going to happen there. And he was wonderful. He could figure out not only where we were, but where things were going.
That's so important. Yeah. So Jerry, I want to dig into kind of the namesake of your company, actually, Z-axis. And you talk about how that is something that's overlooked, and it's most companies are kind of evaluated on their X and Y axis, time and money, but the Z-axis is trust. And can you talk about the most important ways a business can build and maintain trust with its customers?
Let me tell you a story about why I got interested in trust. Early on, I figured out that speaking was a way to find potential new prospects. And so I'd done a speech for a friend, and we were celebrating. We went to a little Chinese restaurant that was just over the hill. And at the end of the meal, the fortune cookies came, right? And I cracked my fortune cookie, and I looked at it, and it said, "The wise man knows everything. The shrewd man, every one." And my friend Michael, he pushed his glasses down his nose, looked over them at me and said, "That's true as far as it goes." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "What you know is important. Who you know can have a great impact on things. But the single most important thing about building a business is who trusts you." And I've never forgotten what Michael told me. I mean, I spent years working with that and doing all kinds of other things, but trust is the significant value that you have to bring to any business, or you're not going to be in business. Literally, trust is the shortcut to brand. I mean, everybody talks about you got to have a brand, got to do this, that, the other. It's all about trust.
It is trust. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily just a fancy logo and a nice color palette and, all that stuff that looks nice and clean and visual. And that's great. That's can be an important part of it for sure. But yeah, I completely agree that making sure that people trust you, that's everything.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at trust, it is the unifying thing that not only builds a brand, but maintains it. The kind of things you were talking about, the logos and all that, that's what I call brand identity. And that's really, it's like sort of like putting lipstick on a pig. Okay. If it's a good pig, the only person that's there, the only one that's going to mind that lipstick is the pig. But the key here is knowing that if someone trusts you and they will continue to trust you, the difference that it can make in terms of what your brand is a very simple equation. When you're growing up, you probably had one of those old fashioned TVs, right? Okay. Now imagine that TV screen. And all the way down there at the bottom where all the dials are, below that is where a group of people who either think, feel, or believe something about your brand and don't like it are. And that's where they cluster, and they're terrorists. They will do anything to injure your brand. They're terrorists is what they are. But one of the things that was found out in this research, which was done by Xerox, is that there's an interesting curve. If you look at, an X and Y axis, what you'll find is that as you go further up that X axis in percentages, and the further you go to the right on a set of numbers, let's say 1 to 5, certain things happen. You've seen what it's like when you have a meal and somebody says, what did you think of that from 1 to 5? Or you get a piece of software and someone says, what do you think of that 1 to 5? Right? And you have answers for them. Mm-hmm. Well, what Xerox found by checking, I think 6,832 actual people who'd filled those out was that there's that group of people at the bottom that want to kill you. They want to get rid of you. And then after that, there's a group that goes through 1, 2, 3, 4, and then into 5. And that is what's called the zone of indifference. They don't care. They don't care whether you're alive, dead, or whatever. In fact, whether you've got a brand or not doesn't make any difference to them. It's just, there you are, right?
Right. Not
until you get to 5 or a little past 5 do people really start to care. And that's where that line starts to curve up. And at about 20%, I believe it is, people will, start to register that you've got a brand. And as you go further up that scale, by the time you get to about 60%, these are people that will wait until you bring out a product that's similar to a better product than you have in order to get yours instead of somebody else's. And as that goes up, when you get to 80%, you have these insane people that really are so locked into your brand. It's amazing, right?
For sure.
But the difference between 5, where the whole curve starts up, and the top of it is a 600% increase in sales. 600%.
I mean, that's insane.
All of that is based on whether they like your product or not. But as you go up that scale, there's another important factor that most people don't talk about, and that's customer service. Okay.
Yeah. And it's something that a lot of, I talk about this a lot because it's something that a lot of companies don't get right. Big companies, small companies.
But it's their claim to fame, right? That's everybody's.
Yeah. It's crazy how many companies just don't get it right. And it's actually super simple. It's not that it's easy, but it's one of the simplest things you can actually do in your business. And it's just amazing that more companies just don't take advantage of it, but it can be costly depending on where you are, how, and what kind of resources you have. But it's so important.
Well, the first thing you have to do in that regard is to make sure that everyone in the organization understands the mission. And that means refining that mission to the point where it's no more than 7 to 10 words. That's it, total. And if people believe that and understand that, you're going to have reasonable, customer service. The most fun I ever have, and I don't do this much anymore because I don't work with really big companies anymore, but to sit with the CEO of a national organization and have him tell you how wonderful they are and how they're so well structured in terms of consumerism and customer service and so on. And all I do is very quietly say, I'll tell you what, make you a bet. What's that? I said, pick up the phone, not your number, just this phone right here, and call your company and ask to talk to yourself. I have had, how can I put this, CEOs spend 20 to 25 minutes just trying to get to the secretary. And it's like, what? And then
they have no idea.
Oh, they have no idea.
That's the process.
And I said, okay, we've now solved that problem. We know that can be difficult, and that's understandable to some extent. But what about when somebody's got a complaint about a product? Here's a complaint. Let's see what happens, right? You know how many companies I have eliminated, how can I put it, phone trees or phone, whatever those things are, those phone situations where you call in and you say, we've changed our dial-in system. You'll need to listen to this to determine what number to
press 1 for
yeah. And I want to say, never mind what I want to say about press 1. But you can understand, if you watch a senior officer of a company try to get through that little gateway, all of a sudden it changes things. And one of the things that I really, really am hard over on is when you have a customer service situation, People do not want robots. They don't want computers. They don't want automated chat boxes. What they want is to talk to a person.
For sure.
Yep.
Who can solve their problem and do it now.
Yep.
100%. I really circling back on the trust, Jerry, I really think again that is so important and very imperative, because what trust can do for you, whether it's through a client, whether it's a customer, whatever, whether it's an employee in your business. I mean, that helps create the word of mouth engine, right? The best marketing that's out there is people talking about your brand. And if you can be the company that's trusted, the individual that's trusted, the team that's trusted, I mean, again, just imagine how many people, how it spreads, and word of mouth only goes so far, right? And I tell my clients all the time, you can't just solely rely on that, but you can always figure out a way to continue it and make it, continue to make that grow and continue to have that grow while you're building the customer service, while you're continuing to build the trust and continuing to be that human being, right? Just like you said, nobody wants to talk to a robot. Nobody wants to talk to an automated process where they're having to press a whole bunch of buttons to get where they need to get to. We want it now. We want to talk to somebody now, right? Huge thing with Facebook. I mean, I deal with Facebook ads. They're terrible, right? Customer service. You have to go. And once you finally get a hold of somebody and you get that like coveted email, you can never let it go, right? Because you're like, I got an in right now.
Yeah, with an actual person.
Person that it took me 2 months to get. Now they're like communicating with you like they need to, right? And then it makes the process easier, but it's hell walking through that and having to go through that. And it makes you not want to deal with a company from time to time. Even though I do Facebook ads and I know the process now, it's still a pain in the ass. I mean, you go through it and you're like, why is it so difficult? Right? Where Chick-fil-A can get it right just through some sandwiches. And we're over here
and they're cranking
in the digital
through people,
world.
Thousands. It's not volume. I mean,
nobody even cares about waiting in line anymore. They're just like, whatever. I know I'm going to get what I came here to get. It's going to be like I want it. It's going to be, they're probably going to even go off the top. And I don't know if y'all have seen the commercials where they have like, I don't know what it is. I've seen some stuff on Facebook where people are making fun of Chick-fil-A, where like the actual person, because they're like in your window, like running down the road with them and taking their order, man. I mean, that stuff is so funny because it's so true. They basically bust their butt to make it happen. And I think if we focus on earning that trust and focus on doing what it takes in the customer service portion right there, even though, like I said at the beginning when we started talking about it, everybody's claim to fame is customer service. But when you break it down and you start pulling the layers back, you're like, nah, it's not. It's an easy thing to say because everybody says it, but that doesn't mean you're actually getting it right.
And it's fun. I mean, customer service is, when you do it right, it's fun because people respond better to you. So it becomes business becomes way more enjoyable, I think.
Yeah. Let me give you another example of that. I was shopping at a local shopping center and my car wouldn't start. Okay. So some nice people helped me push it because there was a service center for one of the organizations that was in the mall, just down the hill. And so they helped me push the car. I took it down there, I had left it running, went inside to the counter and said, hey, I need a battery. I need one of those really good, solid batteries, the ones that are never going to die. Right. And so I didn't mention a brand there, you see. And so the guy behind the counter says, well, sorry, we're going to have to make an appointment. I said, I can see 2 bays are open right there. What do you need an appointment for? And he said, well, that's the way we work. We have to have an appointment. I went, oh, okay. Thank you very much. I walked out the door and this was in the days of the old flip type cell phones. Flipped my phone up, called my buddy and said, hey, can you follow me home? I need to get a new battery and I need to go to the local Les Schwab dealer. He said, okay, fine. So off he went. We pulled into Les Schwab. Now, Les Schwab is a little company that does tires, batteries, and accessories. That's it. That's all they do. And they've made their living by doing tires and brakes and that sort of thing for I don't know how many years. Found in a little place called Redmond, Oregon. Anyway, one of the things that they do and they train their people to do is when you pull in and you stop, they run to your car. Not walk, not saunter, run to your car.
I like it.
And they're all dressed in white outfits and so on. So literally I pull in, this guy runs to the car and he says, what's the problem? I said, well, I got a battery problem. I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, oh, okay, let's take a look. Right. So we take a look. He said, oh, it's one of ours. It's great. I said, so can you fix it? He said, oh yeah, it's going to take a new one. I can tell just by looking at it. But have you got the paperwork on this? I said, well, I don't know. It might be in the glove compartment. So we look in the glove compartment and find it. He takes a look at it. He says, oh, great. I said, what's great? He said, well, it's got about 2 months left on the warranty. So we're going to take that off the price of your new battery.
Perfect.
Nice.
Yeah.
Puts the new battery in. I'm out of there in less than 20 minutes. Right. And there was no appointment. There was nothing. I just get it done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, every single dealer that they have operates the same way. All the guys run, and the gals, they've got gals here now too. It's kind of interesting to watch a lady work on a tire the size of, that'll fit on a truck. But they've got some gals that can do it. Anyway, the thing that I point out, and I did a column on this not too long ago, is that was just for one battery, less than $100, right? You don't think about that much, except 3 cars with 4 tires each and at least 1 battery each went through that same organization.
Yeah.
To the tune of somewhere north of $5,000 because one guy ran to the car and took care of me.
Yep.
Right.
And here you are talking about it on a podcast. That it was that good. That experience was that good that you're talking about on a podcast. So there it is right there.
For sure.
Well, I never go anywhere else for tires now. That's it. No discussion.
Yeah.
Where we're going.
It's just making that one impression, right? That first impression could tell a lot. Not saying that people don't mess up, but I mean, if you can land it the first time right out of the gate and just hustle into the car, I mean, it might freak some people out, right? Initially, if they don't know that's what they're about. But once they learn the story, it makes so much sense, right? It's an impression that it's just different. It's almost like, when you're trying to market, you're trying to throw something and try to draw their attention to it right in front of them. And it's like, okay, distraction marketing here at its finest. And that right there is something that will impress upon you when you're like, whoa, what is this dude running up on me for? And then he's like, can I help you? And you're like, oh yeah, man. Awesome. That's good stuff.
It's interesting to me. One of the things that I find working with entrepreneurs is so often they want to have, the latest, gee whiz, wonderful software, technology, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And they want to use that because they think it's the best thing they can do for their business and that'll impress people and so on. And to a certain extent, they're right. But when it comes to the person getting what they need done, again, the person or a person is much more valuable to them than any technology. So, think about it. When you start a business, if you're out there all alone, a solopreneurs, there are so many of, and most consultants, by the way, are solopreneurs, like 80% of them. So they're kind of all alone. And so they want to use technology. But the other side of it is if you can convince them to get the right kind of people to do what needs to be done, then suddenly they are much more powerful and their revenues increase. So instead of trying to use technology for customer service, especially in the startup portion of any organization, you're better off to hire someone and have them take care of that.
Right, sure.
And give them the credit and the due they need in order to let them really make a difference in your business. And long term, by the way, that really pays off because that person begins to know and understand everything about your business and can make, how can I put it, adjustments to all kinds of things.
For sure.
That makes sure that things get done. I have a perfect example. I was having lunch one day with the marketing director from a little company that does overnight deliveries you may have heard of. It's called Federal Express. And so we're having lunch and he's saying, he said, you have no idea some of the stuff we went through. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, when we first started, at one point, we were afraid we weren't going to be able to make payroll. I said, well, what did you do? And he said, the boss went to Las Vegas and gambled and made enough to make payroll. I went, you got to be kidding me.
Wow.
And he said, but that's not really the best story. I said, what's the best story? He said, well, we're operating with just a few cities. And one of the cities was Indianapolis and another one was Minneapolis. And they were operating out of their hub, of course. And what happened was somebody in Indianapolis had ordered a a wedding dress, and it was being shipped on one of their planes, and it was supposed to go into Indianapolis and deliver there, right? They blew it. It went all the way to Minneapolis, right? And in those days, they didn't have any way to check on where things went if they went to the wrong place. There was a gal who did that. And so she started checking. She called Minneapolis, said, oh, yeah, they've got it, right? She then told them to charter a plane and take that dress back to Indianapolis and get it done that day, right? So the bill comes through for the charter. And the marketing director said, I was in the room when the CFP or the financial guy walked into the room and said, what the hell is this? And she said, look, guys, we all know we're going to be out of business in a couple of weeks. This is a gal's wedding dress. She really needed to have it for the wedding.
Sure.
So I chartered a plane to get and then somebody said, well, wait a minute, who was she? Turns out that this was the daughter of the guy who ran the, I'm going to get this wrong, I don't know what the company was, one of the major, I think it was RCA, television assembly plants, which happened to be in Indianapolis. And they had been trying to get them as a client for over a year for parts and so on, right? Guess what they got the next week? Because her dress was delivered to her on time for her wedding.
A big client.
That's customer service.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's somebody literally taking those words, absolutely positively got to be there overnight.
Nice.
She took it to heart and she made it happen. You got to have fun with this kind of thing. But the other side of it is, if you put that kind of mission in your people's minds, it's going to happen. And you're going to have to say, okay, that's the only thing I can say about it in terms of what you do and how you do it. Let me see. I do have another story that you might like about that, which is a true story. And this is one I was involved in. I was doing a consulting gig in Chicago. Never forgotten this. So we're in a board meeting. And the president of the company says, I've made a decision. And all of us in the room kind of went, oh, God, now what? He said, I've decided that I'm going to let everybody in the company pick their own titles to put on their business cards. Now, I'm a marketing guy. And I kind of went, wait a minute. Are you out of your mind? And I railed for 5 or 10 minutes. And he looked me dead in the eye and he said, I'm doing it. Bang, done, right? So a little while later, we all go downstairs because there's a company meeting in the cafeteria. He walks up to the mic, taps on the mic, this working, yes, and says, okay, I've come to a decision. I'm going to let each and every one of you have your own title that you pick on your business cards. And Margie, who was sitting right down in front, starts bouncing in her chair saying, I know. Says, Margie, what do you know? She says, I know. And Margie, what do you know? He says, I know what I want my title to be. He says, really? What's that? She looks up at him and says, I want to be Galactic Commander. You could see the lump rise in his throat. As he said, you got it.
Yeah.
Right? So
Galactic.
Margie got her cards. Yeah. Now, Margie worked in customer service. She was not allowed to sell anything unless the person on the end of the phone asked her for it. Okay? Not a bad deal. Okay? So in the first month, Margie's sales were up, 20%, something like that. Second month, another 20 or so. I mean, it was going up 20 and 25%. Third month, she's somewhere hovering just under 30%. And so they start looking at this. And you think, wow, that kind of sales when you're not allowed to sell, that's really great. That's not what's important. What's important here is that there were people calling in and saying, I'd like to speak to the Galactic Commander.
Yeah.
And so they would connect me. And basically what would happen is that Margie would listen to them, take care of them, and so on. These were people, however, that had never, ever been contacted by a salesman, had never received any information from the company. They were not in any database. People were calling that had never had a connection with the company because they wanted to speak to the Galactic Commander.
Yeah, that's different, but I mean, I can see how it works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, in a year, there were 3 Galactic Commanders.
Caught on.
Oh, yes, it worked. I mean, why not? So customer service is a big piece of what we're talking about in terms of trust, but trust begins literally. Well, you guys, I'm sure when you're out and about, have to introduce yourself, right?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. So have you ever thought about the fact that when you're introducing yourself to someone, that is the single most important time that you can impress them, that you can actually start to build a brand right there.
Yeah.
And you have a better ability to do it there than at any other time. And because trust is the shortcut to brand, the more trustworthy you are in that introduction, the more powerful it's going to be. Okay. That's why I invented a thing called 30-second marketing, because I'm sure, like most people, you've been told you've got to have an elevator speech, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you ever notice that elevator speeches really, you don't like doing them and people don't like hearing them? Other than that, they're terrific. Okay.
Right.
So what I did was I started looking at that, and I actually had at one point in time, I was speaking on networking and this sort of thing. And I actually talked about how to build one of those. And then I did a demonstration of it literally on stage with a couple of folks in a sales meeting. And the fun part of that is that we discovered that people don't really want to do them, and people really don't want to hear them. People do not want to hear a commercial. They want to have a conversation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when somebody says to you, the most popular question in North America, what do you do? Your answer is how you begin to build trust.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing you have to do is find a way to describe yourself that is memorable. Okay. Because in today's world, if you aren't memorable, you lose.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first piece of brand. Okay. But you have to be trusted to give them information that's real, that's usable, and something that they can do something with. I'll use an example from early days for me. I used to stand up at like a Chamber of Commerce meeting and say,
Yeah.
and they say, what do you do? Well, I'd say, I build websites that make rain. And I'd shut up and I'd sit down. Now, just sure as I'm sitting here right now, 2 or 3 people would gravitate towards me because they want to hear a little bit more about that. So when they say, well, yeah, can you tell us more? I'd say, well, you know how since your niece or nephew went off to college, you can't get anybody to work on your website and make the corrections that need to be made? And heads nodding. People say, oh, yeah. I say, well, what we do is we build you a website where you can change all the words and all the pictures, but we're going to fix it so you can't screw up the navigation. Would you like that? Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have time to sit down with each of you right now. But what if we agree to get together at some point in your office or my office? I don't care. Maybe a cup of coffee, and we'll talk about it, and we'll see if we can work together on this. Would that be okay with you? Well, I'd pick up 3 appointments.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And off we go. Okay. In those appointments, I would talk about how we did things, but I would also use a close. And the close was, you know, Jessica, who owns the little deli down on the corner. Well, we did a site for her. And I was just stopping by the other day to get a sandwich. And she said, hey, have you seen the new site? And I said, what do you mean the new site? She said, well, I changed all the items on there and I changed the menu. I went, really? You did all that on the website by yourself? She said, yeah. She said, remember, you told me I'd be able to do that. And you took about a half hour to sit down with me to show me how to do it. And it works, right? Now think about this. You live in a small town. There's only 2 or 3 delis. Most people know Jessica. They know she makes a great sandwich, but they don't ever think of her as somebody who could run and build her own website. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, you have taken something that looks like it's magic and you've simplified it enough that the local deli owner can deal with it, which says, hey, I could do that. It's the kind of close that makes people go, well, I could do that. And at that point, you don't close anymore, because when people, how do I say this? When you're operating from trust, you don't have to close. You just take orders. Different.
I like that.
I
have
a question for you guys. What do you do entrepreneurially besides the podcast?
Sure. Yeah. So I have a product development firm, and but I also help with launch strategy. So I help people kind of take their idea and bring it to life with product development and launch strategy.
Yeah. Mm. For me, I own a digital marketing agency, and I help people from A to Z, from SEO to web design. Social media marketing is really the bread and butter right now for me in my agency, helping other clients generate leads right now.
I know I'm not supposed to do this. I'm going to turn the tables on you. So how do you prove to people that social media marketing is working.
Show them social proof is really the only way you can do it these days, because everybody is the next big thing, right? Everybody's claim to fame, especially if they're doing social media marketing, is, hey, check this out. I can generate leads, or this is what I did. So I can't really show them, personally, some of my clients and list some of this information out, but I can show them the strategies that I've implemented, the strategies that we take and the things that we do, and educating them really, on how we do it, and just bridging that gap and building that trust really is how it comes down to it, right? Because I'm huge into trust. And that's one of the things that I'm approachable, right? I own my own digital marketing agency, but I also let people talk to me. Right. It's not, I'm not the guy that's, hey, you have to go talk to Sarah whenever, if it gets to a certain point, then you can talk to me. No, I have the open door, right, policy to where any of my clients at any time, right, I might have some team members working on your things while I'm generating more business and generating more leads for my company. But at the end of the day, I'm always the one that takes the phone calls and sits down and goes over the reports with my clients. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I frequently get asked to sit on panels to talk about lead development, generating leads, and that sort of thing. I don't know how long ago it was. Within the last month, I was doing a major summit, and there were only, I think, 2 live panels in the whole thing. Everything else was recorded. And somebody was saying in the panel I was on that more leads is better. That's really good. More leads is better, right? And I don't know whether it was a panel member or somebody that was trying to, get us started. I basically said, let me simplify this for you. More is not better.
No.
Better is better, right?
Exactly.
For the next 35 minutes, we talked about how do you get it better?
Right.
And that's really a matter of many times in the case of SEO, knowing exactly who it is you're trying to talk to.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And what they think, believe, and they can do, and so on. So a great deal of what I do with consultants is, how can I put this? Moving their language to a point where it makes sense. You've got to get it to the point where you know who you're talking to. And the one thing that happens there, which most, how can I put it? Most B2C businesses don't understand, but B2B do. And that is, there are people out there that can be great referral sources for you. You have to identify them and understand how they think and work and feel and believe and so on, so that you can talk to them about giving business to you through referring someone to you.
Yeah,
you have to be able to handle those. And many times those are called centers of influence. Okay. But that's one group you have to talk to, but you also have to talk to the folks that you actually work with.
Right.
And so there's this differentiation that goes on there. And what happens with a lot of entrepreneurs is that they are so hard over trying to generate funds and so on. They talk very well to the people that are centers of influence, but they aren't talking to their primary customers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they aren't having real one-to-one conversations with them. So one of the secrets to entrepreneurship that I've found is just go talk to them.
Sure.
Ask them. Talk to the people that use your products or could potentially use your products or services and find out what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then design to meet that need. But also, once you've designed to meet that need, making sure that you're giving them everything they need and or adding to what they need in such a way that it's going to generate additional sales for you. Yeah. It's amazing to me how
100%.
often we get bent around an axle because we're not thinking about who the real customer is and who the customer of the customer is.
No, I agree. I mean, I come across a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of small business owners that I actually market for, and they don't even know who they're trying to talk to. They don't know who their customer is. They don't know who their ideal customer is. I get a lot of, hey, I want to sell to everybody. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, that's all of us. We all want to sell to everybody and we all want them to purchase our things or whatever we created. But once you sit down and understand that you're not going to sell to everybody, then that's being realistic. So I think a lot of expectations are unrealistic, where it comes us as consultants or whatever we're doing in our business. It's more of educating them on why that's a bad idea. And hopefully the other people outside the people you're targeting will trickle in and it'll earn you additional income, right? Because that's when you have a good product. That's when you have something that's staying, and it might not meet somebody's intent right now, but that doesn't mean it's not going to meet what they need later on, right? So when you find that niche, or when you find that ideal customer that you're trying to push your target on or your product on, then that's when it starts making sense. But I have so many clients, and it gets me fired up, because I'm like, time to educate somebody today, right? Because you cannot sell to everybody everything all the time. So,
well, the other piece of that, the best argument, I guess, about that I've seen is the whole idea of the customer journey, okay?
Yeah.
Which basically gives people an idea that, everybody is not ready to buy at the same time, and they may go through some stages before they get to the point where they want to buy, okay? And understanding what those stages are does two things. It helps you maintain the idea that you have to be out in front of them fairly regularly,
right?
Because if you aren't, you aren't going to stay with them. And the other side of it is you have to be there when they're ready to buy. And the best illustration I've ever found for this is, and we're back to tires and batteries. What the hell? Used to be in the local newspaper, there would be ads for tires every single day. And you'd say, well, why would you do that? And the answer is, from people who sell tires, you're never sure when they need them. So you have to be there when they need to be triggered.
Yeah,
sure.
It's just that simple. It's
100%.
So, I have fun with it. So the language is a very important thing. Where they are in that journey is another very important thing. Let's see, what other things could I possibly bring up here? Well, there's two things that I'm doing, and I think this works for almost any business, and it works for entrepreneurs if they learn how to do it. I'm working on a new book right now, which is basically how to use speaking to build your business.
Yeah.
And what happens is this. You early on as an entrepreneur learn that you have to be somewhat of a networker in order to build any kind of business. If you're building any kind of service business, you must be a networker. You don't have a choice. If you're building a product business, it helps in order to get you in front of the right people, in front of the money, and so on. But if you can get in front of a bunch of people, anywhere from 10 to thousands, you're going to get to more people more quickly. Mm-hmm. But you have to do it in a way that is efficient, a way that brings people into an understanding of who you are and what you do and how you do it, but does it by building trust. You have to have a way to speak to that. Now, I'm one of the few professional speakers anymore that literally will do a keynote that has no pitch in it at all. Or if you want me to, I will go on stage and we'll split the proceeds of what I sell from the stage. Okay.
Nice.
Okay. Now, the interesting thing there is I've experimented. And what I've found is I can do a hard sell or I can do a soft sell. What it all comes down to is, did I give you enough information that you can go away and do this on your own if you really, really listened? And did I make it possible for you to do that? But then also make it so powerful that you say, if I just had his hand there, helping me out, I'd probably be more sure of this. Mm-hmm. That makes it worth paying that price.
Exactly. Yeah.
Agreed.
I had one client that we did this with. I don't know how we are for time, guys, but anyway, I'll try to do Jeremiah's story very quickly. Jeremiah was an engineer. Actually, he graduated from Oregon State, who is about to go into the Sweet 16. Do you believe that?
Nice.
Anyway, so Jeremiah, when he was a little guy, he'd work with his dad. And they had what they called a backflow measurement organization. Now, you probably don't know what backflow is, but basically in every water system in the United States, every residence, every commercial operation, whatever, water comes into that situation and it's clean. Okay. So you have to have a way to keep that water that may have been gotten dirty in that organization or place from going back into the system. That is backflow. Okay. And they have to have a way to check it, make sure that it's working properly, and you're not getting backflow. And every municipality has that. It's across the United States. It's in the law. So people have to go inspect that. The problem is it was all done manually, and it was all done with analog instrumentation. Now, here's a guy who's a graduate of Oregon State, who's one hell of an engineer and a software engineer on top of it. And he said, Dad, you're working too hard. We could make this a whole lot easier. And so he builds a piece of software, finds out that not only does he need software to work with the people that are doing the testing, but also the people that they report to. So he's got two different pieces of software all of a sudden. Well, Jeremiah goes out, when I first met him, a client of mine who was investing in his company said, "Hey, would you go take a look?" I said, "Sure." We talked about it a little bit. And I said, "So how are you doing when you go out to these meetings of people that do this?" He said, "Well, they ask us to come, but they're not really sure whether they want us to speak or not." And I went, "Really? Let's see if we can fix that." What we did was we had him go out and talk about how digital technology could possibly help people in this business, not selling his software, but using digital technology for other parts of it so that they would understand how it could be used. Make a long story short, or shorten it a bit, we tested that formula and worked with it a little bit. And what we found was that after a couple of years, we were generating anywhere between 50 and 100 new users of the software every time they spoke. 2 years after he started the business, he sold it to a major company from the Eastern United States that made hardware that worked in those systems for $7 million. Now, the fun part was they actually hired him to be their go-to guy for anything digital that they were doing, because, again, this was an old company, primarily analog. He took that for about a year. Last time I heard from Jeremiah, he and his lady had taken his, 40, 50, 60-foot mobile home, whatever. Not mobile home, but those things that rock stars use. And I think he was in Southern California at the time. Basically, he no longer has a residence in Oregon. He's wandering around the United States with the highest end laptop you can imagine. And as he put it, he said, "Well, I got a couple ideas for some software, but we're not rushing anything."
Yeah, just let it ride. Yeah, exactly. That's great. That's a cool story. And Jerry, we've talked about so many great things. You've got some great stories that you've been involved with directly and indirectly, and I think there's a lot of really great things that our listeners can pick up on in this episode. If you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that be? And it could be something that you've already mentioned that we can touch on again.
Part of what I always try to give people, and I've been told now after years of doing this, is, build a business, build a brand, and a life of joy. There is a secret to a life of joy. You have to like what you're doing, okay? If you do, work doesn't seem like work. It's a pleasure, okay?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there are other people in your life. Either you're married or you're not. Either you got kids or you don't. But the reality is you need to have time and make sure you make time for those people. And the easiest way I've found to do it is this. Put a door on that office in your home. Close it at a specific time every day. Do not go back in there.
Yeah, I like that.
It works. And it's worked for a lot of clients of mine.
Yeah.
The reality is you need to have that time away from the business, doing something else, being involved with other people, because it will make you a better person and a better business person because you're not so overwhelmed.
Couldn't agree more. Yep.
100%. And well, guys, I think that's a wrap for this episode. But from the both of us, Jerry, we want to thank you for taking the time of your day and joining us and adding value to what we're doing on our podcast.
Loved it. Had a wonderful time. Yell anytime you want me to come back. There's a lot of stories and a lot of other things we can talk about. But that whole idea of speaking to build your business, when I get that book done, I'll be back.
Love it.
That's awesome. We'd love to have you back. Well, yeah, it's been a pleasure, Jerry. Thank you all so much for listening to That Entrepreneur Life. To learn more about what Jerry is working on, check out 𝘸𝘵𝗀𝗏𝗏𝑒𝐺.com. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe to our podcast and don't forget to download our free ebook about the success mindset at thatentrepreneurlife.com.
Thanks for continuing to support what we do as entrepreneurs, guys. And don't forget to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneur Life.
Thanks for listening to That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Be sure to visit thatentrepreneurlife.com to join the conversation, access our show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode as we continue to add value. Until next time.